Chapter 18: The West on the Eve of a New World Order. The learning objectives of this presentation is that delegates will be able to understand what is scientific revolution, to know what are the contributions of the scientists and philosophers in this new concept, and discuss the impact of enlightenment. These are the topics that will be discussed in this presentation. First is the scientific revolution, the next is the background to the Enlightenment, the philosophers and their ideas, and the culture in an enlightened age. Toward a new heaven and a new earth, an intellectual revolution in the West. The philosophers of the Middle Ages had used the ideas of Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Christianity to form the geocentric theory of the universe. In this conception, the universe was seen as a series of concentric spheres with a fixed of motionless Earth and its center. Nicolaus Copernicus felt the Ptolemy's geocentric system failed to accord with the observed motion of the heavenly bodies and hoped that his heliocentric theory would offer a more accurate explanation. He argued that the sun was motionless at the center of the universe. The planets revolve around the sun in the order of Mercury, Venus, the Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The moon, however, revolved around the sun. Moreover, what appeared to be the movement of the sun around the earth was really explained by the daily rotation of the earth on its axis and the journey of the earth around the sun each year. Johannes Kepler took the next step in destroying the geocentric conception and supporting the Copernican system. Kepler arrived at the laws of planetary motion that confirmed the Copernicus heliocentric theory. In his first law, however, he contradicted Copernicus by showing that the orbits of the planets around the sun were not circular but elliptical, with the sun at one focus of the ellipse rather than at the center. Galileo Galilei, the first European to make systematic observation of the heavens by means of telescope, inaugurating a new age in astronomy. Galileo's revolutions, published in the Starry Messenger in 1610, made Europeans aware of a new picture of the universe. But the Catholic Church condemned Copernicism and ordered Galileo to abandon the Copernican thesis. The Church attacked the Copernican system because it is threatened not only scripture but also an entire conception of the universe. Isaac Newton taught at Cambridge University, where he wrote his first major work known as Principia. In the first book of Principia, Newton defined the three laws of motion that govern the planetary bodies as well as the objects on Earth. Crucial to his whole argument was the universal law of gravitation, which explained why the planetary bodies did not go off in straight lines but continued to elliptical orbits about the Sun. Newtonian synthesis created a new cosmology in which the universe was seen as one huge, regulated, and uniform machine that operated according to natural laws in absolute time, space, and motion. Newton's world machines concept dominated modern worldview until 20th century, when Albert Einstein's concept of relativity created a new picture of the universe. The starting point of Descartes' new system was doubt. As Descartes explained at the beginning of his most famous work Discourse on Method, written in 1637, he decided to set aside all he had learned and begin again. One fact seemed to Descartes beyond doubt: his own existence. From his first postulate, Descartes deduced an additional principle, the separation of mind and matter. Descartes argued that since mind cannot be doubted by the body and material world can, the two must be radically different. From this came an absolute dualism between mind and matter, or what also had been called Cartesian dualism. Descartes' separation of mind and matter allowed scientists to view matter as dead or inert, as something that was totally separate from themselves and could be investigated independently by reason. The split between mind and body led Westerners to equate their identity with mind and reason rather than with the whole organism. Descartes has rightly been called the father of modern rationalism. Background to the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was marked by an emphasis on the scientific method and reductionism, along with increased questioning of religious orthodoxy. The scientific method, the process used by scientists to understand the natural world, has the merit of investigating natural phenomena in rigorous manner. Major sources of inspiration for enlightenment were Isaac Newton and his fellow Englishman John Locke. Newton had contended that the world and everything it worked like a giant machine. Enchanted by the grand design of this world machine, the intellectuals of the Enlightenment were convinced that by following Newton's rules of reasoning, they could discover the natural laws that govern politics, economics, justice, and religion. John Locke's theory of knowledge also made a great impact in his essay concerning human understanding, written in 1690. Locke denied the existence of innate ideas and argued instead that every person was born with tabula rasa. By denying innate ideas, Locke's philosophy implied that people were molded by their environment, by whatever they perceived through their senses from their surrounding world. Montesquieu, his most famous work, The Spirit of the Laws, was published in 1748. In this comparative study of governments, Montesquieu attempted to apply the scientific method to the social and political arena to ascertain the natural laws governing the social and political relationships of human beings. Distinguished three basic kinds of government: republic, monarchy, and despotism. Montesquieu used England as an example of monarchy, and it was his analysis of England's constitution that led to his most lasting contribution to political thought: the importance of checks and balances achieved by means of a separation of powers. He believed that England's system, with its separate executive, legislative, and judicial branches that served to limit and control each other, provided the greatest freedom and security for a state. Voltaire was especially well known for his criticism of traditional religion and his strong attachment to the ideal of religious toleration. Voltaire became even more strident in his denunciations, crushed the infamous theme. He thundered repeatedly, the infamous thing being religious fanaticism, intolerance, and superstition. Throughout his life, Voltaire championed not only religious tolerance but also deism, a religious outlook shared by most other philosophers. Deism was built on the Newtonian world machine, which implied the existence of the mechanic who had created the universe. Diderot's most famous contribution to the Enlightenment was the Encyclopedia, or classified dictionary of the science, arts, and traces, a 20th-volume compendium of knowledge that he edited and referred to as the great work of his life. Its purpose, according to Diderot, was to change the general way of thinking. It did precisely that in becoming a major weapon of the philosophers' crusade against the old French society. The contributors included many philosophers who attacked religious intolerance and advocated a program for social, legal, and political improvements that would lead to a society that was more cosmopolitan, more tolerant, more humane, and more reasonable. Toward a new science of man, the world was an object of society, and the Enlightenment thinkers thought that people could understand and control the world by means of reason and empirical research. Social laws could be discovered, and society could be improved by means of rational and empirical inquiry. The very idea of social science as the set of rationally deduced principles on the basis of which society was to be organized. Smith believed that individuals should be free to pursue their own economic self-interest. Through the action of these individuals, all society would ultimately benefit. Consequently, the state should in no way interrupt the free play of natural economic forces by government regulation on the economy, but should leave it alone, a doctrine that subsequently became known as laissez-faire. Smith allotted government not only three basic functions to protect the society from invasion: defend its citizens from injustice, and keep up a certain public works such as roads and canals that private individuals could not afford. The later Enlightenment. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, whose political beliefs were presented in two major works, in his discourse on origins of the inequality of mankind, Rousseau argued that people had adopted laws and governors in order to preserve their private property. In the process, they had become enslaved by government. The social contract. The social contract, with its famous opening sentence, "Man is born free and he is everywhere in chains," stated instead that people could only experience true freedom if they live in a civil society that ensured the rights and well-being of its citizens. Being part of such a society involved submitting to the general will, a force that transcended individuals and aimed to uphold the common good. Emily. Rousseau's aim throughout Emily is to show how a natural education, unlike the artificial and formal education of society, enables Emily to become social, moral, and rational while remaining true to his original nature. Despite of this educational limitation, many women had notable contribution to the scientific revolution. Maria Wickelmann, in Germany, for example, was an outstanding practicing astronomer. Nevertheless, when she applied for a position as assistant astronomer at the Berlin Academy, for which she was highly qualified, she was denied the post by the Academy's members who feared that hiring a woman would set a bad precedent. The strongest statement for the rights of women was advanced by the English writer Mary Wollstonecraft, viewed by many as the founder of modern European feminism. Wollstonecraft pointed out two contradictions in the views of women held by such enlightenment. He argued that the Enlightenment was based on an ideal of reason innate in all human beings. If women have reason, they should have the same rights as men to obtain education and engage in economic and political life. Although the Baroque style that had dominated the 7th century continued to be popular, a new style affecting decoration and architecture known as Rococo had spread throughout Europe. Unlike the Baroque, which stressed power, grandeur, and movement, Rococo emphasized grace, charm, and gentle action. Another aspect of Rococo was that its decorative work could easily be paired with Baroque architecture. The Baroque Rococo architectural style typified 18th century palaces and church buildings, and often the same architects designed both. Historians have grown accustomed to distinguishing between a civilization's high culture and its popular culture. High culture is literally an artistic culture of the educated and wealthy ruling classes. Popular culture is the written and unwritten culture of the masses, most of which has traditionally been passed down orally. The distinguishing characteristic of popular culture is its collective nature. Group activity was especially common in the festival, a broad name used to cover a variety of celebration. Community festival in Catholic Europe that celebrated the feast day of the local patron saint. Annual festivals such as Christmas and Easter that went back to medieval Christianity, and the ultimate festival, Carnival, which was celebrated in the Mediterranean world of Spain, Italy, and France, as well as in Germany and Austria. Economic changes and the social order. Europe's population began to grow around 1750 and continued to increase steadily. Textile were most important product of European industry in the 18th century. Most were still produced by master artisans in guild workshops, but in many areas textile production was beginning to shift to the countrysides where the putting out or domestic system was used. A merchant capitalist entrepreneur bought the raw materials, mostly wool and flax, and then put them out to rural workers who spun the raw material into yarn and then wove it into cloth on simple looms. The capitalist entrepreneurs sold the finished product, made a profit, and used it to purchase materials to manufacture more. This system became known as the cottage industry because the spinners and weavers worked and spin wheels and looms in the cottage where they lived. Consumer Revolution. The Consumer Revolution refers to the period from approximately 1600s to 1750 in England, in which there was a marked increase in the consumption and variety of luxury goods and products by individuals from different economic and social backgrounds. The Consumer Revolution was a major part of history that influenced society, views good, and the status that comes along with wealth. The Agricultural Revolution from 1750 to 1850 can best be explained as a massive success in the development of European population, gradual transformation of the traditional agricultural system that began in Britain in 18th century. Aspect of this complex transformation, which was not completed until the 19th century, included the relocation of land. The European society in 18th century. The social classes of the Middle Ages consisted of the upper, middle, and lower classes. Within the upper classes were kings, monarchs, nobles, knights, and clergy. In the middle were merchants, doctors, and lower clergy. The lower class consisted of peasants and serfs. During the mid-18th century, Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies. The Europeans did not see themselves as sharing a collectively identity or a common culture. They even speak different language and belong to different ethnic groups. It was divided into many states and ruled by different rulers. And that would be all for my presentation. Meeting adjourned.